Hey guys, welcome back to another weekly devotional. This week we're going to be moving on to a new series in the Gospels, and specifically we're going to be focusing in on the Gospel of Luke. So today you're going to be reading the passage that is Luke 5, 1 through 11. And this passage is all about Jesus when he first calls his very first disciples. That's Simon, who then becomes Peter, James, and John. So I'm just going to give you a little bit of context into this passage, and then I think that it would be healthy if you guys read through it a couple times before doing the questions and whatnot, just because it's such a rich passage that has a lot of things you can take from it. So before this time, Jesus has been moving around teaching and preaching, and people are following him. He's been healing, and he's been casting out demons. But he doesn't have any close disciples or close friends or people who would actually follow him, and he would disciple them in each different town. Right before this verse, Jesus actually says to a crowd that he says, "I must preach the good news of the kingdom of God in other towns too, because that is why I'm sent." So the people that he's preaching to, he'll go to their town and then he'll leave. And the people are so hungry for more of his preaching and more of his knowledge that they start to follow him in crowds. Jesus is almost like a modern day celebrity. He's being followed by these people from town to town, asked for more preaching and more wisdom. So then we come to the passage you're looking at today. Jesus has a large crowd who are following him, and he decides to go out on a boat and preach to them and teach them. Now, before this, because of all the towns Jesus has been going to, you can imagine how tired he must be. He must be tired from constantly healing people, constantly casting out demons, and constantly being there to preach and teach people new things. And yet, Jesus humbly allows this great crowd to be taught by him. He allows himself to go out on a boat and preach these things to them. That just shows the humility and love that Jesus has for all people, for the people who want to seek him out. So think about that as you continue to read this. Another thing to think about is that just right before this, in verses 38 to 40, Jesus actually talks about how he goes to Simon's house, who then becomes named Peter. And he actually heals Simon's mother-in-law. So when you're reading into verse 5, 1 through 11, I want you to be thinking about what Simon has already knows about Jesus. And so be thinking about how Simon has a glimmer of doubt, and yet considering what Simon has already been through when Jesus heals his mother-in-law, who was very sick, and they all thought she was going to die, and yet Jesus healed her. So just think about that, and maybe consider how Simon Peter is actually very similar to us in our faith for Jesus. Even though we know all of these different things that Jesus has done for people, and even with all of the evidence that shows that Jesus must be real, and yet we still have glimmers of doubt in our life. And so I think that it's really good for us to just try to trust Jesus and try to trust whatever he's going to do in our lives. If we're called somewhere and it seems incredibly irrational or crazy or whatever, follow the example of the disciples and do what Jesus says. Pack up your things and follow him, no questions asked. So yeah, I hope that was helpful for you guys, and I hope that you guys will enjoy reading this passage and have a lot to take away from it. Thank you.